Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another family time. Family time, of course, is that time when we look at various issues surrounding the family, and not just the family, but persons connected to the family. And so, welcome to everyone, including those on FB and on YouTube Live. This is family time. Family time is about your issues and your relationships, your at home family, your community family, and your global family. Family time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families which will lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please connect with us. Connect on any one of our platforms and send an invitation to a friend. So you can connect with us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Family Life Ministries FLMJA. And you can find us on Instagram. You can keep up with us there by simply searching for FLMJA. While Family Time is a family program, we would just like to caution you that it may occasionally touch on some issues that might be considered to be a little sensitive. So your discretion is advised. I am Marsha Lawrence Davids. Ah, sometimes we have some jobs, that can be somewhat stressful. And stressful jobs can be fulfilling because they make a difference. Some of them pay very, very well. Yes, and I would love some of those. And some don't pay that much. But that's not usually the reason why people do these jobs. They say that if you work in the health ministry or the health sector, the security, if you work with transport, legal, media, or education, and I am a teacher, those are considered to be some of the more stressful sectors. Those jobs are quite stressful. And I know some persons listening can agree. But then, can't stress be relative? Because what is stressful for one person may not be stressful for another. What stresses you may not necessarily stress me. So, for today, let's consider specifically the police in our program entitled Surviving a Stressful Job. As one of our guests so accurately puts it, policing in general is considered a high stress occupation due to the demanding nature of the job. Policing in Jamaica involves an increased risk of danger and unpredictable situations. How do police effectively when they are faced with stressors like depression? That's just one question. But let's begin with your question of the day. And your question is, how can our policemen and women ease their stress? You can send your response via WhatsApp or text or voice notes. Make sure that the voice note is no longer than 30 seconds and send it to 876-997-3125. Or you can call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 Facebook and YouTube. We'll be right back with our special guests, Dr. Kenisha Nelson and Dr. Paul Bourne. Don't go anywhere. Hi.
Sonship. It is quite simply the way God prefers to do business. If we mean business with God, we need to learn what it means to be a son to a father in the body of Christ. Are you willing to learn? What does the Bible say about sonship? Tuesday, July 23, on The Rock, join guests Michael McAnuff Jones and Bishop Carl Wisdom as they discuss the topic sonship. That's The Rock, Tuesday, July 23 at 10 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. And of course, welcome to our special guests, Dr. Nelson and Dr. Bourne. That's Dr. Nelson and Dr. Bourne. Do I have it right? All right. It seems I have it right. All right. So you can unmute at any time so that you might be able to speak. So, Dr. Nelson, in 10 seconds, tell us about yourself.
I am a occupational health psychologist and I'm a lecturer at the University of Technology, Jamaica.
All right. One bright person. That's, it's so good to have you.
Thank you for
All
having me.
right. Okay. And Dr. Bourne, tell us about yourself in 10 seconds.
I am a lecturer at Vocational Training Development Institute, and I also lecture for the Jamaica Constabulary for Staff College.
Wonderful. And so I recognize that we have some persons who are professionals and not just professionals, but they have the information that we want. And so we will be listening keenly to what it is that you have to say. So as we explore our topic, surviving a stressful job, we want to hear from you, our audience. So please answer this question. How can our policemen and women ease their stress? WhatsApp us, or you can send us a text message or a voice note, of course, and make sure those voice notes are no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125. And of course, you can watch us and comment live on Love 101, Facebook and YouTube, or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. Well, on this program, time flies fast. So we're going to jump right in and hear from our professionals this evening. So tell us, Dr. Bourne, what are the statistics as it relates to stress in the police force?
I want to contextualize some stuff for a person to
Here,
understand things. As a stats person, all right?
all right.
So we did a research
Mm-hmm.
last year on Jamaican males and one on females, and we had some figures, all right? So we're going to actually compare with what we found out that time with what is happening to the police now. So we interviewed about 750 police officers across the 19 police divisions to ensure that we have a robust and an extensive sample size can actually use to actually examine the issue. And we
Yes.
use the Beck Depression Index to assess what was going on. So what we found out, which is going to be a little unnerving for a number of persons, is that, listen carefully now, that 30% of police officers, about 31% of police officers who are males, are depressed, and almost 70% of the females using the Beck Depression Index. Now, when we compare that with the general population was far less than the 70% for the females, and
Mm-hmm.
about the same for the men. So what it means is that whatever the men in Jamaica are going through, they are going through a highly stressful environment, and the police are no different. But the
Yes.
females are worse than the males in comparison to their mental state.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And you're right. I really did not expect to hear those figures. But let us dive into finding out what are some of the causes of these stressful situations and the depression that we're finding within the police force.
All right, so I'll go first because
Yes.
I did a research a few years ago in 2016 actually. And a part of my research looked at what are some of the major stressors that the officers in the JCF face. Now,
Mm-hmm.
counterintuitive to what the public might think, persons think that, it's the danger of the job, is the high risk nature of the job, is being out there in operational duties that are going to rank as the highest stressors for police officers. But the
Yes.
research suggests, and it's not unusual because globally this is what it suggests as well, is that it's the organizational issues. It's the issues within the organization. So things like compensation, things like
Oh.
inadequate equipment, resource issues, uncomfortable work environment, and
Mm-hmm.
work life balance. These are some of the
Wow.
areas that we're finding that are contributing to the stress levels of these police officers.
All right, thank you so much. So, what about the long hours? And so, you're saying the life threatening aspect of the job is not necessarily it, but
No.
persons want to be able to know that they can make a living for themselves and their families. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, exactly. And it's the resource issues. And of course, I just gave you some of those aspects. There are other things, for example, not being able to see their families and friends often enough,
Mm-hmm.
not being considered for promotion often enough. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the stresses. And supervisors as well. So, how supervisors handle the relationship between their sub officers and
Yeah.
themselves, those are some of the things that we're seeing, and also things like transfer, how that is handled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not sure if persons realize that when you join the JCF, you can be transferred anywhere in Jamaica at any time, and your family don't go with you. So
Oh.
it can be stressful, for instance, to live in Kingston and hear that you're going to be transferred to Westmoreland,
Mm-hmm.
and so you find that it disrupts families as well and
Mm-hmm.
causes problems with families, which includes things like infidelity and all of those things.
I
So
can imagine. Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you tend to find that persons believe that the transfer process itself is not fair in how it is done?
absolutely, and that is what we found. Transfer sometimes is used as punishment. So, at the time, at least that we did the research, I don't know if there has been any change, but at the time that we did the research, we found that officers found transfer to be used as a way of punishing them. So, for instance, if you got into any problems with the supervisor and that
Yes.
relationship might have deteriorated, the supervisor might recommend that, listen, you're in
Mm-hmm.
Kingston, let's move you to St. Thomas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some of that that is seen as unfair by officers. So yes, that is an issue, or that was an issue then. I don't know if it's an issue now. 2016 is a few years ago.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. So tell me then, if it is that you could describe what depression looks like in a police officer, how would you describe that? Dr. Bourne?
Ah, that is a good one. But I mean, Dr. Nelson mentioned some issues, and we are doing a research now as we speak for
Yes.
publication on attrition. It seemed like she actually went in last night and looked at my paper because we're about to publish. I mean, some things on that, and we can update what is actually happening. We found out a number of things has been top of the list, such
Yes.
as transfer, supervisors, working conditions, environment, and these are police officers not telling you what they are going through. These are not
Mhm.
outsiders. They're police officers telling what they are going through. And
Yes.
so there are issues relating to that. The work hour is normally not the police issue, because police normally work the normal 40-hour week. All right?
Hmm.
So that the work is not the issue. But what becomes a problem for a number of police officers is how they are handled,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
how they are handled with even how they are actually what? Not only demoted or they are spoken down to, but how they are dealt with in terms of when it's time to actually show a police officer that he's out of line, you're
Yes.
moved to St. Mary and you live in Kingston.
Oh, this
Right?
is getting so interesting, but I'm going to ask you
Right.
just to hold it just a little as we go right into the break. So remember to tell us how our policemen and women can ease their stress We're looking forward to hear what you have to say. You can WhatsApp us or text us. Send us a voice note. No longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125. And you can watch us and comment live on Love 101 Facebook and YouTube, or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. And just so you know, the numbers for the FLM head office in Kingston are 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. It's break time, but just before, let's get a word from Rev Mike in this episode of WTF.
There is a popular phrase, especially in Christian circles: I am too blessed to be stressed. However, it does not enjoy biblical support. For James 1 says, count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds. So a more correct statement from God's kingdom perspective would be, I am blessed to be stressed. You see, stressing you is part of God's way of blessing you. Matthew 5:11 declares, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. Stress need not be a bad thing. Research has found that acute stress can help improve one's cognitive function or mental performance. So are you in a stressful job? Maybe you're a police officer, a teacher, a nurse, or a politician. Don't worry. Your stressing can become your blessing. Are you being stressed by your family and friends because you're trying to be a good Christian? Don't worry. You are in good company and on your way to Christ-like maturity if you deal with stress like the Apostle Paul did. He wrote in Romans 5, we boast victoriously about tribulation, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. Now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who was given to us. You are blessed because of your stress. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Receive words of strength from the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis.
The battle of seed has been declared many years ago and it's still raging. I will put enmity between thee and between the woman, thy seed and her seed. A war will be on perpetually until Jesus returns. But I know who has already won the war. I know who has already won the war.
That's the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries International in Portmore. Voice of Power comes to you every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
The best Burger King with the best tasting burger under the sun. You deserve the best. You are number one. Flame grilling, juicy whopper, cause you deserve it. Yeah, next level, awesome. That's how we serve. Mama menu done your way. To taste rules every day. Flame grilled goodness. You deserve it. Great taste, well done. More flavor, fresh Burger King, best tasting burger under the sun. Gear up the schoolers! July 15 to September 14, Bashka's amazing back-to-school deals just for you. Buy a case of books and receive a box of pencils and pens. Don't miss special discounts on computer tables and chairs starting August 1st. That's not all! 2 lucky winners will receive a Samsung tablet or a $30,000 back-to-school shopping spree. Follow us on all socials at Bashka Jamaica for more information. Visit Bashka today and gear up the schoolers. Bashka, the store that gives you more.
You know
what's sweet? The new pack Sweet Living promotion. Win great prizes.
Bedroom set, living room set, or kitchen appliance set, plus TVs and monthly cash prizes.
Send in 5 new pack labels or a receipt. Labels must belong to at least the new pack canned beans, coconut milk powder, and new pack oil categories. Fill out the tagline. New pack, more than just value. Place your entry in one of the drop boxes at participating outlets. Enter by mail or online at newpackjamaica.com. Time for live sweet. Enter the new pack Sweet Living promotion, June 16th to August 31. See the price for more details. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Winnings are on floor. Winnings are on. Win a 75-inch smart TV paired with sound bars that they get every week. Samsung Galaxy smartphone a dway. S24 dway. Plus 3 grand prize. Win a game money if it's splash. $1 each in a big money cash.
Get trivia prices of data and credit. Switch to Flow or activate any unlimited prepaid plan. Or pay a yard and road bill on time and in full for chances to win. Conditions apply.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone, to our discussion on surviving a stressful job. And so we want to hear from you on how our policemen and women can ease their stress. Now, before we went on our break, Dr. Bourne was sharing with us what it is that depression looks like in a police officer. Can you go ahead, Dr. Bourne?
So we can look at some of the things that the depression index actually assess and why our public now need to begin to look at these things. They could include sadness, failure, loss of pleasure, guilt, punishing feelings, self-dislike, suicidal thoughts, crying agitation, loss of interest, indecisiveness, worthlessness, lack of energy, lack of sleeping, irritability, changes in appetite, and concentration, as well as tiredness. So when we are looking at police officers, they are no different from any other person. And what a number of persons do not seem to understand when they're actually interacting with police officers is to sort of assess the officer in terms of the officer's state at the moment, to sort of assess where they think the officer is and what the officer is likely to do as a result of assessing that state. Now, it might be difficult for a number of persons to do so because they are not trained psychologists and psychiatrists, etc. But yes. I'm saying to you, let's put forward an incident to a number of Jamaicans who are, it's clear in your minds. The issue relating to the police officer trying to arrest the female and saw how that went. That has to be an indication of the mental status of that female officer. Now, your job is to do a particular thing as a police officer. And if a police officer understands his job or her job and understand the situation that he or she is around, police officers ought to be able to assess situations and make their arrest in keeping with those situations. But sometimes because of their mental state, instead of doing that, they try to show power. And in trying to show power, it doesn't come across as power, it becomes across as a mental health deficiency that police officer is exhibiting, which is exactly what we sometimes see. Yeah. So what we're saying is that when persons actually meet an officer is to assess the situation quickly. So to say, do you think this police officer is at this stage, at that stage? And how do I now interact with these officers? People normally don't. They'll see a police officer and you begin to actually have an outburst, but they could be having a bad day, as well as many of them could be depressed. And remember, we're saying about 11% of the police officers are clinically depressed. They should not be on the road.
Wow.
But you might just interact with one such police officer. And then instead of it becoming a situation where it is protect and serve, it becomes a situation of death.
Wow. Well,
I think
I've heard it. Yes, go ahead.
Certainly, definitely, those are some of the indicators. But I think persons who are constantly around or regularly around police officers can look for certain behavioral characteristics, yes, including how they interact with the public, but also what they do themselves. So you might find that they have an increase in drinking, they have an increase in smoking, they have certain irresponsible sexual behaviors. You might see, because they're using those things to cope. And so they're detracting or redirecting their depressive or stressful states to those behaviors. And you might find, which perhaps comes out in the form of, for example, the arrest or the interactions that they have with the public, they are hardened, so they're desensitized to certain things. And so that might manifest itself in how they interact with the public and even with their colleagues as well.
Right. And so I think you kind of start to respond to the next question. Why is stress a problem for one, the police officer, and two, for the citizen?
No, that's an excellent question. I presume you're a scholar more than we are. But let's look at the job of being a police officer. And we need to go back to slavery. All right, I'll go back to even Morant Rebellion of 1865. All right. Remember that the police force was not established to actually be a peacekeeping entity, It was established to quell a rebellion. So police officers were always trained, and even though the police officers are trying to actually deal with a system of community policing, it is substantially a paramilitary organization. Police officers are supposed to be tough, hardened, strong, and all of that. So that continues and is maintained. Now, when you're in that environment and you're in a situation where the persons who you're trying to serve are equally hostile, and many of them are likely to be hostile, then it's hostile against hostile. So we just create a problem for police officers as well, who are not necessarily like that. There are a number of police officers who actually interact with the public.
Yes.
Now, when you speak to them, they will actually say to yourself, boy, if I never had to, I would prefer not to. Because of what they have to go through. Then they have their own scenario to deal with. I want to relate an incident to you that happened where we're actually doing our research. And our research was done recently, as in 3 months ago, all right? 100% recent. When we're speaking to a police officer, he was a crime scene investigator. And his wife came to him after he just came from a crime scene and he was actually sleeping. And his wife said to him, grandma is dead. And you know what the police officer said? Yes. And his wife reiterated, grandma is dead. And he said, yes, I heard you, she's dead. And the wife walked away. It was when his wife walked away, he realized what he had said. And he got up and he was trying to apologize. He said, okay then, man, I really wasn't like that. But think about how hardened he was. That you report a family member's death. And all you're saying is yes.
Yes.
So this is some of the state of police officers.
Yes.
And those have to interact with some things, interacting with the public, interacting with crime scenes, having to deal with their own stressors and their own issues that they are going through in life. And know they must be individuals, people just like you and I, in all of this, and must now protect and serve us.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Nelson, tell me how we can prevent, having a stressed out police officer.
Interesting question. I don't know if you can get rid of stress completely. No job in this world you can eliminate stress completely. But I think there are certain things that we can do to mitigate certain stressful situations or environment. Now, I think one of the go-to things is to help the officer to cope. So normally that is the number one intervention that we administer, which is to expose them or have them participate in stress management seminars or workshops, or if it reach a significant level, you might suggest counseling or therapy or going to the medical services branch. But what the research suggests is that if you just use individual coping methods, it's not going to have the rewards that we expect. What needs to happen is that stress needs to be looked at, and mental health in general needs to be looked at the organizational level. So there are certain things that the organization can do to help to reduce the stressors within the environment of the workplace. So
stick a pin, no send no more. We have to go into another break, but this is so much interesting information. This is Family Time live on Love 101. And we want to make sure that you're listening, and we want to hear from you. How can our policemen and women ease their stress? Send us a WhatsApp text or voice note no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125 on the Love 101 page, Facebook page, and the Love 101 YouTube channel, or call the student lines at 876-968-8327 to 8 to participate. We want to hear from you, man. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We are talking about surviving a stressful job.
It's the holiday and we have nothing to do. We gonna have a good time. With family and friends at Nestle Clean Fun Fest Family Festival. August 1st at Hope Garden. Bounce, spin, ride, play in the fantastic fun zone. And cool down in our water park. But wait, there's more. Mascot parade, games arcade, fantastic train ride, bingo, and mouth-watering food village. Adults 1,200, children 3 years and over 800, and toddlers free. Fun Fest Family Festival. Thursday, August 1st, Emancipation Day at Hope Garden. Gates open at 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Come on early. Clim 1 Plus growing up is not a breast milk substitute. It is a milk product suited for babies older than 12 months. Breastfeeding should continue for as long as possible.
Need to beat the heat this summer? Come to Fosridge for your ceiling fans at prices as low as $15,000. Their sleek and stylish 52-inch fan blades are designed to fit and complement your interior decor. Call them now at 876-937-5099 or visit any of their locations in Kingston, Mandeville, Montego Bay, and their newest location, Draxall. Beat the heat this summer at Fosridge with their Madison ceiling fans. Prices as low as $15,000. Open Sundays.
Love 101 invites you to set your day before it begins with midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight. It's the third prayer watch, a period of much spiritual activity. You will be strengthened during this time of prayer and praise. Midnight prayer and praise is during the third watch of the night, the time to strengthen yourself spiritually and seek direction. Time to command your day. Midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight through to 3 a.m. early Tuesday morning. 3 hours to set your day with prayers offered in each hour. Midnight prayer and praise is on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back. The time is now 6:03 p.m. and you are tuned in to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by the Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Remember, you can tune into the program via the Love 101 Facebook page and YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about surviving a stressful job. And we have two very special guests with us, Dr. Paul Bourne and Dr. Kenisha Nelson. And we have been learning so much, and I'm so looking forward to hear what Dr. Kenisha started to tell us about how to prevent a stressed out police officer. But before we continue, I see that we have a message that came right into the studio. And so someone has a statement actually. And she says, as the wife of a police officer, it helps to be intentional about your life outside of the work environment. Be actively present when at home with your family, prioritizing self-care and what brings you joy. And that WhatsApp message is coming from Mrs. Chambers. What do you think about that statement? What do you think, Dr. Nelson?
I agree. Have to be intentional, have to prioritize self-care. spending time with family, and enjoying, find the things that you enjoy in life and doing those things. Making the time and the effort to incorporate those things in your life.
Right. And I think that goes also to what you are responding to, how to prevent a stressed out police officer. So that is one side. But I think you are mentioning something about organizational structure and change.
Right. So I think I was saying that sure, doing individual or implementing individual coping strategies are important, but that in of itself won't help to mitigate stress to the extent that we want to. So
Mhm.
it's to ensure that organization understand that it has a role to play as well. So for instance, the climate and structure of the organization, how the supportive environment, for instance, we talk about supervisor relationships. Those are things that can be improved within the organization. How transfer and direction in terms of work, what type of uh, methods are used to assign persons to certain jobs, rotating persons in certain jobs, for instance, not allowing persons to stay in certain high risk jobs. For example, crime scene persons perhaps need to be rotated to less trauma inducing jobs. Persons who work in Sissoko, those sort of roles should be rotated on um, periodic basis, so that it helps to reduce some of the stress, and that might lead to things like depression and anxiety that we're seeing. So the organization can take some responsibility and should take some responsibility in helping to lessen the sort of stress and its indirect and direct effects on the police officer and the organization as well.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Dr. Bourne, if the organization doesn't take on the responsibility of lessening the stress of the police officer, how can the policeman or woman lessen their own stress?
That's a very good question. I thought you were going to ask me another question. But I'm saying, where are you going with that question? That's very good.
Mhm.
Now, Dr. Nelson spoke extensively about the role of the organization. But let's look at what Mrs. Chambers actually said. The police officer, and what a number of persons do not seem to understand. Sometimes this is where the family unit comes in. I
Mhm.
know if the police man or woman has a spouse who does not understand the nature of his or her job,
Mhm.
that could even make the police job even more difficult. Because so he goes home with a stressful wife, a stressful environment, with a stressful supervisor, a stressful culture. You're gonna actually make the man into a what? Into a beast, or a woman into a beast. So what I'm saying, in other words,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to start now
Mhm.
thinking about the other side of the coin, which is the family relationship. Now, how do we, and men normally don't, particularly Jamaican men normally select women based on beauty and shape. Men are not gonna start to think way beyond that. Most Jamaican men think
Yeah,
about a woman as just beauty and shape, and then he think about the other
yeah,
things after, and he's not thinking about
yes.
how does she make him feel when he's at home. All
Hmm.
right, so
And what
we are not
sort
gonna
of support? What sort of support
absolutely, it
does
ought to
she
be a support system. So the
have?
police officer needs to do what he loves, and what he loves is not the bar, is not to
Hmm.
gamble, is not to smoke, is not to get into certain activities. Because some person normally think that to de-stress means to do some things. Not the case at all. All right? You
Hmm.
can have a stressful environment and don't do some things. When I say to some persons that I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, they say, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, really? So a number of persons do not seem to understand that fun is not only gambling, smoking, drinking. All right?
Correct.
Go and
Hmm.
sit down at the beach and listen to the waves and going and walking the place, sitting down with your child and having a good time. Those can be some distressors because what they do, what an individual now begins to internalize and value life as against the job. And we need to start letting police officers become aware that you need to divorce the job from your life.
Hmm.
The job is to give you an income. Your life is not the job. So
Right.
when they begin to disassociate these and make them into compartments, then a number of them will be better able to deal with it. So because they are not able to deal with the situation, we're going to have more problems with the police officers on the road.
Yes, I believe so. Thank you so much. And Dr. Nelson, what are some things you believe a supervisor, right, a team leader can do to lessen the stress of the policeman or woman?
So I think traditionally, as Dr. Bourne had mentioned earlier, this is a paramilitary organization. And usually the idea is to lead autocratically. So it's do as I say, or you get out of here, right? So I think that is changing, and my interaction with team leaders in the police force suggests that sort of mindset is changing. So more and more they are realizing that the type of leadership that is needed is more coaching and mentoring, and
Yes.
they themselves have been recognizing, and they have acknowledged that that sort of leadership, is working, especially with the generation now that is entering the police force. And so those who have been in the force for a very long time, obviously it's going to take some time and some effort for them to change, because if they've been in the force for a long time, they came in with that autocratic mentality. But I think with training of supervisors and managers in the force in terms of more rounded leadership styles and
Yes.
supervision and management styles, I think you can begin to see a change in how supervisors deal with their relationships with their sub officers.
I totally agree with you. I think it makes a world of a difference when you know that your superior cares about you, the individual. So it's not about just getting the work done, because you ought to get the work done. And that is the main goal that they have. But when they see you as a human being and you know that they care about you, care about your individual success, care about your family, and so on, then people tend to respond differently to someone who they believe cares about them. What you think about that, Dr. Osborne? Dr. Bourne?
Ah. No, the matter of leadership goes without saying. All right?
Yes.
Because let's look at it. And it's what number of persons, whether people are Christians or not. Let's look at the leadership style of Christ. All right? He led from being a servant. All right? And one number of people do not seem to understand that when you put people in roles and coach them into things, how
Yes.
that mushroom into greatness. Because what you're doing, you're harnessing the individual's capability, and you're letting the individual see himself or herself in a capacity to lead and to take over from you. But what substantially happens in the police force, historically, is that person want to lead forever. And they do not seem to understand that there's an age limit. So if they recognize that there's going to be an age limit, irrespective of how young you were when you went in the police force, age creeps upon you every single day, and every year adds one more day, subtract one more year away from that retirement age, and you're going to be leaving at some point.
Yes. Mhm.
So if a police officer is a supervisor, understand that and begin to coach people as servant and coach them through a process, then we can have a different police force. But what really happens is everybody wants to be the boss and everybody wants to be dominant. Everybody wants to show power. But who really has the power? Look at that servant. Look at what Christ does. And who has the power?
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. And so what I'm hearing you allude to, it's almost a change of culture within the force that is needed that will ultimately lead to less stress if there is a change in culture. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. But it's not only a change in culture. It's a change in the entire psychology of people inside the force.
Yes.
Because how they perceive themselves, and they are trying their best to use servant leadership and to use customer service and to use community service. But when you realize in a split second, a policeman or woman comes back down to be paramilitary.
Yes.
Because that is a psychology of the culture ingrained in the individual. So they have to not only move away from the culture, but the psychology of the culture that has also been changed.
Ah, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we're heading into our final break. This is Family Time live on Love 101 FM, YouTube, and Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, we want you to share on how policemen and women can ease their stress. Let us know via WhatsApp text, voice notes no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125 on the Love 101 Facebook page and the Love 101 YouTube channel. Or call our studio lines at 876-968-8327 to 8 to participate. We want to hear from you. Don't go anywhere. We are talking about the topic, surviving a stressful job.
Kingston, it's your time. The Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs will be hosting a town hall meeting on Thursday, July 25 at the Emancipation Park beginning at 7 p.m. Come and ask your questions on the recommendations of Jamaica becoming a republic and lend your voice to the process. That's the MLCA town hall meeting on July 25 at Emancipation Park at 7 p.m. Let's join the journey of the road to republic.
All right, we're gonna do a roll call.
The Love Jockey is on duty every Saturday inside Youth Connection. Don't miss the hype. Don't miss the tunes. Don't miss the excitement with your boy, DJ Rebirth. Saturdays at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. At 3 p.m., your DJ runs the gospel rhythms. Hot, hot. Tune in at 4 p.m. for a time where we share a word to grow your mind. GYM? Grow your mind? Jim. Get it? Grow your mind. And at 4:30 p.m., we share with you how young people are giving all their time and fulfilling their purpose inside Ministry in Action. We get a taste of poetry and spoken word inside Poetry and Praise. And you get to send us a WhatsApp message and request your favorite gospel song inside Gospel Faves at 5. All this and more every Saturday at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. with your love jock, your boy, DJ Rebirth. It's all here on the family station. Love 101.
Youth Connection. Shubopti and them figured he provide everything on guide with how we chat. Shubopti and them figured him alone make we appear when we did chat. Hey, hey.
Welcome back. It's now 6:18 p.m. You're tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Remember, you can tune into the program via Love 101 Facebook page and YouTube channel. This topic, surviving a stressful job, is what we are talking about today. And we have our special guests, Dr. Paul Bourne and Dr. Kenisha Nelson, who really have been sharing wonderfully with us this evening. And so I have a question for you. When should the policeman or the policewoman seek professional help?
I want to start with that to say, before I answer that question, to say that that is also a challenge because of the nature of policing and the police force. Historically, again, it's considered a macho environment, and you cannot be seen to appear weak. And so help seeking is seen as a weakness. And so you find that many police officers, they suffer in silence because they don't want to be seen by their colleagues or their superiors as being weak or can't handle the job. And so you find that, that sort of limits their help-seeking behaviors. Another thing that emerged from research that I did a few years ago is that help seeking is hampered by police officers having the perception, whether this is reality or just a perception is arguable, but there is a perception that when they seek help, that sometimes it's not necessarily held confidential, and so it's used against them, or they perceive that it's used against them. So that hinders them from seeking help. But I think that there needs to be a movement towards building awareness of stress and mental health in the police force. And with that movement is to one, alert them to the sort of indicators so that they can be self-aware to know when they're experiencing stress or any sort of mental health problems, and also to promote help seeking, and promote it in a way which, you know, ensures that they know it's confidential. And there needs to be an expansion too, I believe, of the services that are offered to the police officers. I think, from my understanding, I don't know if this has changed, but from my understanding, the medical services branch is a unit that offers that sort of support. But and then you have the chaplaincy office, and you have chaplains all across the different divisions or areas in the country. But for certain, the medical services branch, which offers the psychological services, they're based in Kingston and St. Andrew.
Mm.
So I think it's at Twickenham Park. Sorry. And so it's not widespread. That sort of service isn't widespread. So there certainly needs to be an expansion of those services. But to put it across the officers and ensure that the system itself builds confidence in officers that seeking help is a confidential matter, right? And that seeking help does not mean that you're weak. Seeking
Right.
help simply means that, you know, you can operate in a healthy way. So I think that is the approach that I would suggest for the organization.
Thank you so much. And so, what are some of the indicators? Because I heard you mention indicators in your response, Dr. Nelson. What are some of the indicators? So, I'm a police woman, and yes, I know I feel stressed and so on. I know sometimes I'm having some issues where I don't even want to go to work. Maybe, but at what point? Because all of us feel stress from time to time, all right, and there are different levels of stress. So at what point, what are the indicators, what are the things I should look for to determine that at this point I need to seek professional help?
Well, usually, we say that uh, at the point that you find that your situation begins to affect your ability to function in your daily life. So it's
Okay.
beginning to affect your social life, it's
Mm-hmm.
beginning to affect your occupational life, so your work life, for instance. So for instance, it might mean problems concentrating, problems in your relationships at home or with your colleagues. You find that you're more irritable. It might also manifest physically as well. And this is an area that many persons don't realize, is that stress can manifest in physical symptoms. So for
Yes.
instance, you have aches and pains, you're finding that, you know, you're having headaches, stomach aches, and that sort of thing. So physically too, you can those are symptoms that you can look out for. And we talk about emotional symptoms. So again, for instance, you're finding that, as Dr. Bourne had said earlier, you're feeling sad. You're not enjoying things like you normally would. Um, like engaging with your friends or your family. You prefer to stay home. You don't feel like going out and that sort of thing. So those are some of the things that you can look for. And if it's beginning to say, all right, you're hearing complaints, for instance, your wife, as Dr. Bourne gave that example, where you find that your response to your wife might not necessarily be normal or appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are indicators that you might find that you can look for to suggest that yes, it's time.
Yes, I certainly agree with you. I'm thinking about outbursts, maybe fits of rage,
Yes,
unable to sleep at night, or whenever it is
that's
that you should be resting, you're unable to rest. Your mind is always occupied. And then sometimes there are some other medical issues that are caused by stress, the hypertension, the diabetes, and so many other lifestyle diseases. And so,
absolutely.
yes, go ahead.
Absolutely. And I think the organization can, and this is where the supportive organization comes in and the supportive supervisor. There are things that they can also see in the officer's behaviors that might be an indicator. So, for instance, you find that an officer is taking sick leave quite a bit, or they're absent from work. They're
Mhm.
calling and asking for a day off. Those are some of the things. Or you can see some other behavioral changes. They start drinking a little bit too much or start smoking. So those are some of the behavioral changes that you might look for as a supervisor as well. Because the truth is, let's be honest. As people, we can be experiencing symptoms of stress and mental health issues, and we just push them to the side. We don't acknowledge them, and if we don't acknowledge them, then we don't see it as a problem. So sometimes it requires an outside person to recognize those symptoms and to say to you, "Hey, Marsha, I've noticed this in you recently. What's
Yeah.
going on? Do you think you might need to see somebody or seek out some help?" Right? So we shouldn't just leave it up to the individual, even though they should be self-aware. But in an organization, in a workplace, we also need to look out for each other.
Thank you so much. And so, to wrap up in 30 seconds, Dr. Osborne, I keep on calling you Dr. Osborne. Dr. Bourne, tell us in 30 seconds, how can a police woman, a policeman, survive a stressful job?
That's a very good one. But if we can go back to health, that was defined by WHO in its preamble to its constitution in 1946, published 1948. They say that health is not only physical illness, it's psychological and social well-being. And what we are paying attention to is illness. And that is where we're having a problem substantially. So if police officers begin to pay attention to their well-being,
Mm-hmm.
your well-being, then they would understand it's no time to take a break, no time to play a domino game, it's no time to go and play some football, it's no time to spend some time with my children. We are
Yes.
not balancing life for well-being. We are waiting for symptoms of physical disability to say that we're in trouble. And that is where the problem comes in. We need to
I
start talking about well-being, protecting my
Excellent.
well-being. Do things to protect your well-being, officers.
Yes, and that is an excellent place to end. We need to ensure that we're looking at our total well being. Thank you so much. So, thanks for being here with us. If you have questions for a personal nature or concerned about a friend or family member, call us. For more information on our services or counselors in Kingston or other parts of the island, contact the head office at 876-920-1034. Note that for appointments and information on costs, you must call the offices. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, check out on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries. Before you leave, here is this evening's Bible verse. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 7. For we live by faith, not by sight. Join us again next week for another informative program. Thanks again to our special guests, and they were wonderful guests, Dr. Kenisha Nelson and Dr. Paul Bourne. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, you. I'm Marsha, and this was Family Life Ministry. Family time. Have a great day.